recording. Um, I wish I had started in the beginning. That's good stuff, but we could talk more about like this project overall as we get going. But yeah, I'm excited to connect again. I feel like a good amount of time has passed. I'm sure things have been moving. I know that things sort of have recently been shifting a bunch out that way within like the Emerald Grove community, and
Hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of good learning to be had in relation to that. Supposed to talk to Derek at some point. He's sort of hard to pin down, but
Question.
which I mean might be part of the reason that there have been things going on, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, he was saying that he thought like a postmortem would be sort of value. I don't
Yeah.
know if things are dead, if they can rise from the ashes or not, but I'm curious about all that. And then just curious about, you know, this project, all the things. And so, you know, wherever you know wherever you think would be a good place to start. I mean, maybe we could just start with an introduction again. I feel like last time it was sort of this group discussion, but maybe like how you got to where you are. I feel like is a good
Yeah.
place to start.
That sounds perfect. And I can kind of weave into some of the things that are alive in me, and then we can talk about some of the projects, the housing
Yeah,
stuff. If you got
cool.
specific questions, guys, this is gonna be hard. I want to ask you questions too. We'll,
No,
we'll,
no,
we'll just flow
it
with
could
it.
be conversational. It can be conversational.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just flow with it.
I remember you did business school at some point. I remember that.
Yeah. So for me, yeah, it's been a lifelong search of healing to find belonging that I felt that I could be authentic in, and tough wounds around opening up and sharing my needs, connecting and bringing people into my life, and had kind of gone the standard I don't know, societal route of MBA,
Yeah.
getting into the tech world, working corporate life in this kind of hub of Seattle for a handful of years. And then I remember I was on a flight back from a weekend with some buddies, and I was like, what has been missing in my life? Why am I feeling so much better right now than after
Yeah.
a week of kicking ass at work or whatever?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it was this realization of the community is the answer, like community and feeling that sense of belonging, feeling heard and seen and cared for by those that are just accepting you in whatever authentic truth is you in each moment.
Yeah.
And I came
Yeah.
back from that trip. I think it was 2017, I think, and so that's 5 years ago. And I just basically blew everything up in my life. I
Yeah.
pretty much just went. I had this crazy like community vision of the community I wanted to be a part of, and it was a community space. It was this like co-created like a tech platform. It was this kind of an app that allowed people to constantly upvote what they were excited about being a part of, and then having the community kind of rally around whatever had the most energy and putting energy into whatever, yeah, had the most enthusiasm. And
Yeah.
it had this big vision, these delusions of grandeur of this amazing community that I was going to kind of launch. Quit my job, like had like a week of like staying up all night and writing all this, like building a website and these pitch decks. And I spent
Uh-huh.
like 6 months trying to raise money, and I couldn't raise the money for a space, and I ended up just diving into community world of I'm just going to host events and bring people together, and it was all around shared passions. It was
Uh-huh.
throughout the city of Seattle, connecting with, like it was from like connecting with awesome bartenders doing cocktail classes to like
Uh,
nonprofits and doing events with them. We would like the Seattle Pickle Company and do pickling classes. We'd do
yeah.
in terrariums, kombucha, just a bunch of different like crafts and also we partnered with the Pacific Science Center and was doing like science lectures at bars for people.
Cool.
And so all in all, I burned myself out hosting like 5 events a week, building belonging and community for a bunch of other people, but not experiencing myself because
Uh,
it was an act of service that wasn't regenerating and refilling my cup as I was giving to others. And so
uh-huh.
a lot there I learned around living in my integrity, my truth, making sure my needs are met so I can serve others in this larger goal of how do we create a world where everyone belongs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And And eventually, yeah, from there, partnered with a really cool local newsletter organization that was sending these daily newsletters all around, kind of grassroots journalism and sharing stories from different communities in Seattle, starting to weave pockets of Seattle together. And at the core, how can we use storytelling and this rhythm of a daily newsletter to create a sense of belonging in a city that feels disparate at times? And we talked
Oh,
about the Seattle Freeze last time, a city kind of known for disconnection.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and that led to a whole journey. COVID came, lost that job because I was hosting a lot of events in person, and then went on like this whole kind of a spiritual journey. To be honest, it started with my partner was in an accident and had to caretake for her for almost a year, traveling different hospitals with a really horrible spinal cord injury,
Oh,
and
wow.
then ended up coming back to Seattle about a year and a half ago for a little bit as I was still traveling, like flying to visit and take care of her.
Mhm.
But that's when I settled into the Emerald Grove. And so
Yeah.
that was my first experience after like a decade of living alone, of like
Uh,
community living.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a whole nother ball game because it's a level of interdependence and flow of you can't hide your shadows when you're living with people.
yeah,
And that was a huge edge in learning for me about I guess breaking some of these stories that told me that I had to perfect myself in a bubble, then go out in the world to be worthy, to go out
uh,
in the world and be
uh,
enough. And so it led to a deep healing journey of how can I welcome people into my life and welcome people into the mess,
yeah,
welcome people into seeing me in the good and the bad, and it's all enough, it's all worthy, it's all lovable,
yeah,
and that's led to. Um, Um, yeah, lots of others. I spent 6 months this last year down in Central America. A lot of growth and healing in my inner world. But what that all led to is this kind of shedding of the story I had since I was a child, which kind of came from some abandonment issues with family, which
mm,
was my needs are a burden and shifting that to actually my needs are a pathway to connection.
yeah,
My needs are what actually builds deeper relationships. And when
yeah,
I can open those up to be cared for and to be seen in those and show up to care for those that are in my life and show up for what they need and what they dream. Of course, in the right capacity for where I am at in my integrity. Once again, not serving from an empty cup, but making sure that I'm filling my cup. And then as it overflows, I can show up and I
yeah,
can also ask others to help fill it back up in a way that I didn't before.
yeah,
And so it's been a beautiful journey of what does it mean to heal from an individualistic culture that really tries to put a sense of it's weakness to ask for help.
yeah,
It's paramount above anything else to have your own financial security.
yeah,
Where these days, I believe more importantly, like I'm investing in relational security for the rest of my life. Do
uh,
I
uh,
want $1 million or do I want 10 friends I can lean on? Like
yeah, yeah,
lean on, and the answer
wow,
is easy for me.
mm,
Um, and then beyond that, this idea that everything is competitive, that it's always like it's the world is like if I give a little bit, then I lose a little bit.
yeah,
Instead of that, we're actually living in an abundant flow of
yeah,
reciprocity and gifts as we choose to live in that
yes,
and choose to live in what that is.
yeah,
The quote I've been writing something. Something's been coming out of me that I can't wait to share with you one day.
that's
Um,
that, cool,
I can't tell if it's a book or not, but either way,
yeah,
one of the lines that just came to me yesterday, which I've been loving, is we seed culture through our relational soil. And it's something that we can embody in each moment. It's like such an empowering
yeah,
tool of like we are living representations of like a smaller fractal of culture in our lives. Like our wounds, our pains, our traumas are much bigger than us and they're individualized and internalized in us. Like
yeah,
even the wound between my father and my dad, or my dad and I,
yeah,
is I can correlate and
yeah,
fractal out to the wound of humanity and land-based living. You know,
yes,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and all of that and the disconnection from our mind, from our bodies, and like allowing our feelings to be what guide us. And so as I think of that as how my life has been sculpted by that, the reverse is also true of as I heal, my healing ripples out.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I can ripple out culture through the relationships that I live in.
Mm,
And
mm.
so that's definitely how, like right now, it's like that's the juicy shit of this work I'm trying to do, of integrating all of my parts and every team or family or community I'm in, how to integrate all of us into our wholeness and help us all create space to feel seen and heard and feel a sense of belonging. And through that, it's all just trusting in the fractal rippling out of this
Yeah.
integration, of this belonging and the culture
Mm.
that flows from it. And so, um, I'm going to stop there and just say that's the framing for kind of my journey and kind of where
Yeah,
I'm at,
yeah.
what's giving me energy right now. And we got some projects we can talk about. I want to personally hear what's alive in you based on what you're living in your day-to-day life, what you're learning, and like what I just shared.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of alignment in the work you're doing and the journey you're talking about and what I've been living, what I've been learning. Something that you talked about that I think is interesting is sort of this idea of the process being iterative, right? It's not something that you need to figure out to start moving on. It's sort of like, I don't have to figure out my shit in order to start a healing process or to be in community. It's that you can be in the thick of it and start figuring it out. And I think that that is like reflected in nature in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that a lot of what I've been learning has been pushing me towards thinking about um, sustainable community more specifically,
Yeah.
and thinking about systems and structures that support our biology as a species.
Mm-hmm.
And that like evolutionary, like just evolution in general is sort of an unfolding of things,
Yeah.
and it's something that's never done. Right. And so, thinking about community as an unfolding extension of our biology, right? That we are, a social organism, that we are, or a social species, that we are part of a larger superorganism, which is sort of the biosphere. And how can our systems, our relationships, how we connect, what we build, um, how the dwellings in which we live, sort of
Mm-hmm.
support that biology. And so, I mean, we can get deep into a lot of it, but thinking about Aliko actually put me on to this indigenous scholar, Michael Yellowbird, who talks about
Mm-hmm.
sort of molecular and neuro decolonization. And he's talked about how there are actually epigenetic responses to being disconnected from community,
Yep.
and that certain genes are less active, serotonin receptor transporter genes, oxytocin receptor genes. And so really trying to make this argument through a lot of the different work that the rugged individualism, the sort of Western sensibilities are actually detrimental to our biology specifically. And then
Absolutely.
thinking about how uh, systems of cooperation, interconnection, co-living, uh, sort of a re-evolution to sort of, I don't want to say like more primitive systems, but ancestral systems, bringing them back from, back to the future,
Yep.
to build something new. And so I think there's a lot of, there are a lot of bridges between the work, which
Yeah.
is,
It's everything you're describing is just so powerful. Yeah, I believe the age we're living in is both a remembering and a reimagining,
yeah,
and it's like yeah, like yeah. I don't want to go deep down this rabbit hole, but like looking at um like the human species, we've been messy teenagers in our larger evolution. We
yeah,
like, oh my God, we found out we have this really cool tool up here, this brain, and wow,
yeah,
it's rational, it's logical. And also, if we just give power to the brain, it leads to us separating ourselves from compassion and empathy and even the knowing of what our body as the smaller fractal of Mother Earth inside
yeah,
of us and what it tells us.
yeah,
We're losing yeah, it's led to the competitive mindset. Everything it's like this extraction, power over the scarcity because of too much of the mind. And so
Hmm.
rehealing that to connect, yeah, it's it. And the two things that were sparked in me as you were talking there, um, the I can't forget, I forgot the first one now, but the second one is um, what I believe as we're healing, it's this idea that belonging is both the journey and the destination.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
actually cultivating a place where all of us belong is the practice of helping everything that's being felt be accepted. It's helping every part feel integrated into wholeness. It's again, as you think of these fractals of culture that are smaller, it's recognizing that in my inner world, a part of me that feels shame in a certain situation, I need to love that and integrate it back into wholeness so I feel belonging fully in myself.
Yeah.
In a community, it's like if there's a tension felt on the margin or a feeling of whatever the feeling is. I've been calling these terms TUFs, like TUF, like
Uh-huh.
tensions or unintegrated feelings. And
Uh,
like we need to create space for those to
mm,
be felt and seen and accepted, and then also be guiding wisdom for us
yeah.
because it is something that needs to be integrated. And oftentimes, it's a piece that's missing in the. It's like we're not creating. I don't know. We're moving too fast, and
Yeah.
somebody's feeling a tension because of that. And actually, that tension will guide a whole exploration of a different question that ends up shifting how we are doing things in better right relationship with nature, and
Uh-huh.
just all of these different things. And so as we move on this journey of practicing belonging in each moment, belonging also becomes the destination to solve the problems that are larger than we can think of. And we can almost trust in the emergence that comes from relationship and from this integration of the different feelings. And so
Mm,
as someone is, walking through the woods and feels the tension inside their body and the grief as they walk and they see a landscape now that's just been burned down by fire. And it's like now, as we integrate that feeling back into the wholeness of the community and let that guide us, that is guiding us to heal Mother Earth.
mm,
If
mm,
we let somebody who's walking down the street next to someone who's begging for change as they're experiencing houselessness and just trying to get by, and you let that feeling inside you guide your action to compassion, and it starts to ripple out, and how we start to integrate all of that in community, and not to mention integrating the pain and struggle and the suffering of that individual into community, and make sure that we hold care for their needs. That starts to ripple out into all the healing and then beyond that, once we create a place where people truly feel like they belong, there's a different level of responsibility to the whole, a different level of people wanting to bring their gifts. And then it's like, we don't know what the puzzle is. Like, not one person can imagine what's possible between us, but once everyone's bringing their gifts to light, it's just fucking magic.
yeah.
And we start to see problems be solved that we never thought we could have addressed. We start to see innovation in amazing ways because people are just bringing what they care about and the passions and purposes that drive them into the ecosystem, because that's where they feel like they're cared for and feel
Yeah.
that sense of wholeness through. And so
Yeah.
it's that belonging is the journey and the practice in every day, and it's also the destination of these larger things, and it ends up helping, like I can surrender and just make sure that I move through my grief, integrate my pain of the suffering of the land and the waters and life today, by knowing that living a life through belonging, and also creating space for the belonging of that tree, the belonging of each species, the belonging
Yeah.
of all their needs and
Hmm.
their feelings, and integrating that is the path for me. And so
Yeah.
I can again think about seeding culture in my relational soils and just focus on my relationships and how I'm showing up for each other. And
Yeah.
that is it for me. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I dig a lot of that. I think that there's so much in there. I think that, being guided by feeling is something a lot of people are disconnected with. And I think that feeling is a lot closer to instinct than we think, right? Like you can't necessarily put it all to words. I think that some reading that I was doing today for this project I'm working on was talking about how um we've created this sort of false dichotomy between cognition and
Yeah.
materiality, which includes the body,
Yep.
and how place, relationship, and the built environment can actually ground us in and pull those things together as an anchor. And I think that feeling is a big piece of that. I think that, I'm curious, what do I want to say? I think that both of us are on the same page with a lot of things, and I think that this conversation would be really valuable if we can ground it in place.
Yeah.
Because I think that my professor said this to me today, which I thought was, yeah, it's like true. He's like, well, you can talk about these things in theory, and it's like, yes, in an ideal world, that's what we want. But if we can't ground it in our reality, then it's just sort of that theory. And I think that this is sort of the work in sort of this why I'm excited to talk to you, why I'm excited to talk to Derek, any other folks from Emerald Grove. But I think that you have sort of a more umbrella I don't want to say understanding of it, but I think that we talk on the same sort of wavelength. I think that there will be value to think about that sort of microcosm and
Yep.
experiment, because trying to, right, like we were trying to scale everything up. And if we can look at sort of these small versions of it and what necessarily went wrong, what feelings weren't felt, what feelings weren't integrated, what feelings weren't expressed that led us down this path instead of the path to sustainable community belonging, then
Yep.
maybe there's a pattern that we can apply to the whole, world in general. And so I'm curious just sort of what your assessment is of, I don't even know exactly what's happened. And so
Perfect.
I'm curious about sort of the grounding the conversation in that.
Yes. Okay. So I'll touch on three things. This is perfect. And the last one will be more specific to this answer, and I love this question. And the first is for me personally, and I don't think you're different, but I'll just you disagree, but maybe I'll just add nuance. I don't necessarily believe in the scalability of a lot of the ways that we're looking to be, but the ability for wisdom to be learned and passed through communities. Like I don't see my community to be 500,000 people, and that's
Oh, no,
how this
no,
happens.
no, no,
And
no.
so it's rather 5,000 communities of 1,000 or whatever,
Sure.
and or 500, and it's like, and so it's more about how can we make this work on a small microcosm of the scale of how we're living, how we're doing things together, what we're embodying, and
Yes.
like that again is it, and then it can ripple from that, and then it can seed others, and
Yep.
it's like when there's the magic between a relationship, it can spread and it can flow, and so
Yeah.
anyway,
No,
yeah, so
I completely agree. And I
yeah,
think that seeding that's the mycelial network, the mycelial
exactly.
network, the
Yes.
forest, but right, like the forest is built from that. And there can be large trees, there can be small trees, but
Yeah, I
it
love that.
and I think that that's what I'm getting at. It's like there are patterns that we can learn from the smaller
Yep.
that I think we need to learn there to even hope to grow a forest.
Absolutely. And and I don't even know what that will look like, but it's so juicy thinking about it
Yeah.
and it's so special. The second thing is just because you're mentioned yeah, this idea for land has been really prevalent for me. And I actually I held a ritual with a friend last month, which was like I'm choosing Seattle for at least the next few years. And I was going to go back traveling, and I've had reaching out and say, "Hey, let's start a community in Costa Rica and all this stuff." And for me, that's just almost like colonizing a little bubble in a different third world. And it's there's a level of responsibility I feel having grown up in these woods, having grown
Mhm.
up with the privileges that my great grandfather came from Russia and emigrated here, and we've had the privileges of being in these white bodies in this culture, and the pain that's the suffering, the oppression, the genocide that goes back to the people here that tended the land, that held the land, And it's led to me feeling it is most important for me to heal myself, heal my community, heal my relationship with land through the land here, and not run away from it. And also weave it in from the more nature areas in the community as well as the city, and making sure that we're continuing to flow that. And so I just want to shout out a project that I've been getting involved in is this group called Heron's Nest, which
Mm.
was a community-led project where we raised $1 million and then purchased a piece of land, and it's been doing things right next to the local native tribes, the Duwamish people who have stewarded this land for thousands and thousands of years,
Ooh.
and their cultural longhouse is right next to it, and it's just been doing a lot of land tending and yeah, restoring the land in relationship and in support and guidance with the native communities here. And
Ooh,
so
that's
that's a
awesome.
place, yeah, and that's a place where I feel like my healing is actually going back generations, it's going forward generations just through me by
Yeah.
what I'm doing as I was there. I was just there on Saturday and planting indigenous plants native to the wetlands for this area there, and like what that means and what that is in my body. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is something there. And so
Mm,
I
mm.
just want to like that again is we're not going to change Seattle through that, and it's close to the downtown. But
Yeah.
those are the types of things that end up shifting and changing things, and they're just like pockets that then hopefully can be replicated. And we're not going to like grow and take over the city, but it's
No,
like
no.
how can we do that? And so that's a big one. So
Yeah.
anyway, just wanted to share that
Thanks.
because the land, as we've talked, re-indigenizing ourselves, who all of us, no matter where we are, and no matter the cultures we come from, we do come from indigenous cultures. And
Yep.
I don't know when I lost mine or going back, but it's reconnecting with that is essential to my body and spirit and soul and my heart.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so now transitioning. So as a framing for this, so the Emerald Grove is a community that I can say kind of officially became the Emerald Grove, let's say 2 years ago,
Uh-huh.
a little bit before I moved into the community. And and it is has been these two houses right next to each other. One has been called the Temple Forest, the other the Crystal Palace, and amazing woods in the back, a little fire area, yurt in the back of one of the houses. Anywhere from 10 or 11 to 15 people have been living in these two houses for most of the last 2 years. And I think to kind of to frame what you were saying earlier, like I have a lot of background in working in communities similar to like you, so it's like the language I speak, where a lot of the other communities we're living it, but it's not necessarily the same like larger theory, larger picture
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
so, but it's still like this is the place where we're learning how to bring consent into all of our relationships and how we build it, how we realize how to show up for ourselves, show up for others. It's a sandbox,
Mm,
it's a playground
mm.
and a practice space, a dojo for like being in relationship and in community.
Yeah.
And it's had many different iterations. It's we've been fortunate enough to have for most of the time have the two owners of the house be living on the land with us in community, and so we have some more real leeway of just like building something or doing
Yeah.
things, and so that's a privilege that we have that definitely comes from yeah, generational wealth that would
Yeah.
not be there with for a lot of other communities looking to do something like that, and I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
think that's important to be named. And so, but um, in the last 4 months, there has been a large breakdown of specifically one of the houses,
Yeah.
and I'll share this without naming any names because I don't think it's important. But I would probably put the biggest, I'd say three things. The first is we can build the perfect community systems and processes and things, but a lot of this journey has to be done ourselves. And it needs to be done in relationship, but we need to be aware of our patterns, aware of our triggers in ways so we're not just moving through the world through old conditionings and old stories, that we can have the conscious awareness to like say, oh, I'm in anger right now, and I am not going to lash out, or I'm not going to do an old pattern, or I am feeling depressed and down. I'm not going to just put that all on other people. And instead, I'm going to actually open myself up to be healed through other my relationships, but not like go into, I don't know. There's just a lot of patterns in relationships. I even think of coworkers and collaborators where there's work to do to be doing to show up in really co-creative ways and
Yeah.
show up. Yeah.
That can I ask if that something that I've just been thinking about in
Yeah.
relationship to community general in general has to do with defensiveness.
Yes.
And I think that there's a that sort of I think all of what you just talked about connects a lot to defensiveness when you're trying to talk about these things to get to that next place. If there's a defensiveness, that means there's a closed offness. And if there's a closed offness, then there's not the opportunity for the collective feelings to be integrated, which I think is
Yes.
what you're saying we need to move forward.
Yes. And that's exactly it. It's the embracing of feedback, the embracing of the multiplicity of our realities. It's the recognition that when someone gets angry at someone else for not doing the dishes, it doesn't need to lead to resentment that we just brush under the rug. And it's just like a little thing that then ends up over time becoming a relational thing and
Yeah.
manifesting all this shit.
Yeah.
And it is. And that's part of our own healing journeys of, I even think of my journey of ways that I've internalized a thing I failed at as I am a failure.
Yeah.
Not that was a failure and that was
Uh-huh.
something I could grow from. And
Yeah.
so embracing this kind of this and both mentality of, yes, I showed up the best I could
Hmm.
and I could do better
Yeah.
and I want to welcome in all the feedback.
Yeah.
And it's like even the anxiety people get from like I don't know, writing a paper or taking a test and being like, oh no, I failed or whatever.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
do better next time.
Yeah.
It's like what you learn and embracing this curiosity and this constant growth. Like
Yeah.
that's what we need to have at our core to live
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, so
Um,
if we're not stuck in place, if we are recognizing that we as individuals, we as a community are evolving and are iterative, then we welcome if it's given in a constructive way, we welcome people saying, "Hey, you could be doing a better job in this way, this way, and this way," because we
yes.
want things to be better. But if we get stuck, then
Yep.
there are issues.
And then you said another part of it, which is the other person, which is giving that back in a constructive way and sharing it with love and recognizing you felt anger and you have a choice now. Are you going to just go yell at somebody, or are you going to allow that anger, find other ways to move through that anger? For
Yeah.
me, we move through our big fucking toughs, our big emotions by, sorry, I said the F word there.
No, you can curse. It's all good.
um, uh, by like moving it through our body and moving it through relationship. So grab a friend, not the person you have tension with, go up to the woods, scream, have
Yeah.
someone witness you screaming, and then get it out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you come back and you can move through your anger and be like, yo, when you did this, I felt disrespected and I felt like you don't care for me and you don't care for the space and we don't care for what we did. And then from that place of like sharing the impact from a grounded spot, it's a constructive, I love you and I ask you to show up for my needs. Like I need the place to feel clean so I can be whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
I
it's
know, and I know that you do care for me. It just makes me feel like you don't. And it's language, communication, all those things.
exactly. And so that is the inner work and the relational work that we all need to do to show up in relationship and create it, because I am, or we'll just be guided by our old patterns
Yeah.
and our old things. A bubble I don't think we'll get to today, but it was a spark of mine when you were sharing like the disconnection from our feelings and things like that. And for me, I could share a lot about my story with my own masculinity coming from my father, and I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your story about that too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like that's a whole nother rabbit hole of like I was taught don't feel and don't
Yeah.
connect with it, don't move through it, and then
Yeah.
they just end up being suppressed, and then they burst out in
Yeah.
ways, and it doesn't guide how we can be in
Yes.
community.
Yes. Well, it connects back to the defensiveness, right? And so if this, whoever it is, but the specifics don't matter. So that was the first piece, right? I think you said there were three
Yes.
sort of pieces.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I wrote the other two down so I get in it. So yeah, that first piece of one last part of this piece is living in our own integrity and being true to our commitments.
Uh-huh.
And so
Responsibility.
exactly.
Yes.
And I will share a need with you. If you can't show up for that, no worries. Name it right away and let me know that.
Yeah.
And this is healing from our people pleasing tendencies, healing from all these different things to say, okay, I love you. I care for you. I can't show up for that for you. Can anybody else or whatever that is? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so when we have people who are in community who are giving out commitments but not following through to those, that just erodes trust
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, holy shit, I can't rely on this
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we're not building trust, and that's all I need is I don't care if the same person tells me no every time. I love that they're being true to their integrity, true to them, and they're living in right relationship to them. And
Yeah.
I know they're doing the best with what they got. And it might
Yeah.
just be
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
tough year for them. I'm going to keep showing up for them, and I believe in what they can bring to the whatever it is. Anyway,
No, no.
that's
Yep. I get it. Yeah, for sure.
but this ties into the second part, which is roles that match our gifts.
Uh,
And specifically, in the other house, there was a person in this role of landlord slash manager of the house who doesn't naturally like just that role isn't natural to them, their gifts. And we can weave into this like just different ways we learn, different ways we work,
yeah.
different neurodivergences we all have, different ways our body moves through things, how we can feel productive, how we get through a to-do list, where we need support, what we need, what we do alone. And I guess this touches on the self-awareness as well, but it's recognizing how you work best, how you live best, and knowing what role you're in. And again, if you're committing to things in a role because of the responsibilities and taking things, and that's not for you, then it's just a recipe for disaster. And
Yeah.
so it was building over time, but someone in a role that wasn't managing house right. And eventually it got real bad. And
Yeah.
like water shut off at one point,
Oh,
and
wow.
the house, like construction started happening without talking to housemates, and mold, like deep like issues on the house, mold, as well as just taking care of things that
Mhm.
weren't addressed,
Yeah.
bills not paid on time,
Mhm.
and things that people were relying on them as parts and commitments that are inherent in the role they were stepping into, but them not living it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear, so yeah, there's so much in here. It's wild. When I was describing it to my lab yesterday, that this sort of I knew that this happened, but I didn't know the details. And I was saying I was excited from a research standpoint, but then also like it's a bummer, right? It's a real bummer when this sort of stuff happens. But they were saying instead of thinking of these things as disillusions or failures, like we were talking about, it's an iterative process. And if there's something to learn from this, then there's a value. And I think that what I'm imagining is if a certain person, due to, I don't even want to call it a status, right? But a certain positionality, right? I'm the purchaser or whatever, is given a certain role because of that. There's this idea that, oh, well, that person should fulfill that role because they're the one who owns this place or owns this land or whatever. It feels like there's a collective responsibility on I don't want to say both sides, on all sides, that individual, but then everybody around them to say, maybe you're not the best leader in this way.
Yes. Yes.
And that's not a shortcoming. That
Yes.
doesn't mean that you're less than. It's just us recognizing that a different person can step into this role, whether and it has to come from either somebody being willing to say, I need the help, or somebody being willing to have a hard conversation and say, you need the help.
Yes.
And if those conversations aren't happening, then it seems like you get to a point uh, where there's a vacuum of leadership.
Yes.
And even in a system where ideally you have horizontality or horizontalness within leadership, everybody needs to fill in each other's gaps,
Yes.
or then you have gaps and you got a leaky boat, right?
There's so much here, and I'm catching myself in my body and what's coming up, and like not wanting to like get defensive in ways, or like put people under the bus. It's a challenge. It's some of that, a lot of that happened. And it was still not, it's again going through with commitments and going back to like, okay, what is it? And multiple times people stepping up and saying, okay, let's go. Anyway, it was, it was tough um, as I could also say the importance of naming power dynamics and recognizing them, and then just putting them out there instead of trying to deny them and saying that there is inherent power in this, and that's it. And there was decision, there's a lot of things, and it was, and then those power dynamics need to be lived through and embodied. And if we're going to be living in a co-creative community, and one person says, I don't want to be the leader because I don't have it, but then because they own the land, they can start doing things like just start like, oh, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to start a huge project without anyone's consent or checking in. And then it starts to really mess with people's trust.
Yeah,
And
because there has to be an honoring of agreements, right?
exactly. And so it was another, and I I want to share two contexts, and the first being, we're figuring this shit out, and there's no blame, like there's
Yeah.
no like whatever, and it's like we're doing the best we can. As we're all trying to figure out who the fuck we are, figure out our gifts, figure out what works and what doesn't, and so we're of course learning through that. And I think we kind of referenced this earlier, but creating space for all the mistakes, creating space for all of the messiness,
Yeah.
and welcoming in people sharing what our gifts are, people having those tough conversations like you were just referring to, like what you're great at and what you're not, and then being able to leverage what is abundant, what the resources are that we each bring to the table.
Yeah.
And so it was super messy. And from that, I will just kind of more deeply harp on what your lab mates were saying, and also tie in a kind of some wisdom from the kind of nature. I trust in the seasons as life in general.
Yeah.
And so right now we are going through a winter season for this community that things are breaking down and decomposing, and holy shit, I know spring is going to come. I don't know if spring means that we all just are like it's a dandelion, and we ended up rooting in this tough soil, and we got it the best we could, and then we sprouted up, and we flowered, and then we closed up, and we're all going to be seeds going to new places.
That's a possibility. Yes.
Exactly. Or we might have pockets and breakoffs, and I think what's going to happen is at least 5 or 6 of us are going to go start a new community house in the next few months.
Yeah.
And so it's so I trust in this again, fuck the shit from our culture that says we need to just keep growing at whatever 4% GDP and this constant there, and beat ourselves up if we're not, and it's like everything's going to implode if we're not. No, let's go through cycles, and it's okay to let things die. And so for me, I'm not even fighting it, I'm embracing it. We're about to hit winter. It couldn't have come at a better time. We all grew so much the way we loved. I'm really sad about how things ended for that other house and for where some things are, because that led to relationships that might not get mended. Like there was a level of anger and hurt and grief. And in the end, there were, as this person that was in this kind of role that maybe shouldn't have been of managing the house was off figuring out their life mission and traveling and experiencing the world. There was a family of 4 people living there, a chosen family that got really deep. And then of course shit hit the fan, and within a week they all had to leave, and their family, they all went different places, and all just imploded. And
they couldn't stay in the house anymore.
Yeah, it was construction stuff. It was just like everything, and it was really
from
rough.
from somebody who's out doing their own thing saying, "Oh, construction's happening, you got to get out."
Actually, that person came back and was like, "I've got all this stuff to do in the house. I haven't been here for 3 months, but now we've just got to do it. We have a deadline." And then basically, people woke up to the bathroom just gone, and just like things that were just like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and it's
it was tough. It was tough. And again, we're all doing the best of what we got, and we're dealing with with financial shit and money and trying to make it work, and all the things that are like we're doing it. And we're of course dealing with our own wounds and our own ways of being. And so
but there's many moving pieces, but I like this idea of and I was thinking about it yesterday in lab. It's like death is not something that is bad, and that from death can come life. And even if it's a new community that's sprouted from this, that has learned from these mistakes, there
Oh,
is immense value in that, right? And
oh, this shit's in my body.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
in
There's no
everything.
forgetting it. There's no forgetting it, and no not learning from it. And I think that's the thing, right? It's like if we can't learn, right? Because I think that's what evolution really is. We are made up of information,
Yes.
right? And oh, there was this definition of information I learned yesterday in class. I don't have my notebook, but it was basically like it's when you're working through something that is not known, that's information. It can't be fully known. And so to be human, to be living, we are made of information. We are not fully known. We are not fully formed.
Yes.
As we take in the information, that data is changing physically within us and we are evolving. And I think that that's reflected in our built environment. And I think that the disarray of a built environment is a reflection of this is where we are informationally as a collective, and we have uh to evolve is learning from mistakes over time in our bodies.
Yes. And I've never thought of it like this, but you're making me think of it. It's like we are bringing complexity into our bodies. It's like it's simplifying as in our bodies. It's like
Yeah.
before it's kind of like all of these things, and then now I can just feel it and move through it in a grounded place and trust in the little things that I know that's the next step without trying to have the whole picture. It's allowing, complexity and uncertainty and ambiguity and emergence to
Yeah.
be just the water we swim in
Yeah.
because of now, like what's come into my body because of the complexity.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. And then like evolution being that continual step of bringing complexity into the body, and then just we're continuing to incorporate more complexity.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's simplicity within the complexity, right?
Exactly. We
Um,
find out, it's like almost like the principle, the rule, yeah, yeah. You go from the divergence to convergence, and then it's like, oh, this is a way I can move through this that holds all of that I didn't
yeah.
know when I was going this way.
Yeah. And it's I'm just thinking in terms of this like this assessment of what happened or what's happening, I think
Yeah,
is a better way of saying it. And
yeah,
I'm curious about the third piece
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But
Exactly. I still
I
want to do it.
think that wait, I just lost it, but I'll get it back. Um
Yeah, I can flow into the third piece, but I want to give it like 10 seconds. Think about it.
no, no, I got it. I got it. I think it's this idea that there are there are moments, is this what I was going to say? There are moments where we can sort of recognize what's happening as it's happening, but not do anything about it. Um, those are sort of like our own maladaptions, right? Like we are not like fully adapted. I think I got this a bit more. And that like there's all this like work that has to get done to maintain certain things, which is just hard to do within this system. Is this where I was going? I don't know, but I'm going to keep going with it. Right? It's like, there are financial burdens, there are social burdens, there are relationship burdens. It's all like very, very complex. I think this is what it is. But if we can't recognize that it becomes less complex through the soil of relationship, like you're saying, that it actually, our life becomes simpler as we lean on each other and communicate with each other. That's the strength of the community. But if you're not living in the strength of the community and using it, that's when the individualism starts to erode away at the
Exactly.
community. And so it's like, well, I'm going to figure all this out. Yeah, I delineate things to y'all, but it's really still me making decisions. Well, we're not leaning on the
Relational
community,
emergence. Yeah.
and you are actively saying, I'm not good at this. This stuff stresses me out. I can't do that stuff, but then you're still doing it
Yes.
instead of recognizing that this community can actually take that stress from you because the burden can be spread between us.
this is like I've got like four rabbit holes here we could go down. It's like it's yeah, it's trusting the relationships, trusting the culture. It's I actually I find this with this yeah, I won't go deep into this, but I know quite a few white men in roles of cultivating community that can't give up power
Yeah.
and can't give up vision. They even can get to a point of bringing the right people in the right room, but then it's like, oh, actually, that's enough. And now let's co-create the vision and values together. But no, it's like, oh my God, like you're right there. But no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, and it's a difference between like what we need to be doing, I think, to really cultivate belonging from the ground up is saying, let's build a train together, and we're going to decide where we're going to go, and we're going to then decide the cars we need and all this stuff. Instead of this, I'm building a train. I already know where it's going, and then we tell people we're going to build it together. But actually, I just want you to build a caboose,
Uh-huh,
and
uh-huh.
that's it. And so it's this disconnect there that's like super there where there was a disconnect here with the original part of co-creating a vision. And so then whose vision are we aligning to? And the real magic is let's all share our dreams, let's all share our visions and see where the alignment is. And then that's where we put our energy collectively.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
we all have our unique little dreams and unique things. But if there's a place we can find the overlap and then we collaborate towards that, that's it. And that's the
Yeah.
shit. And
Yes, yes.
so the other thing I'll say about the simplicity before I just touch on the last thing just
Yeah.
briefly, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
easy. For me, the simplicity has come down to it, and it's this, I guess I can name it because it's vulnerable for me to share, but I am writing a book and it's called Conscious Belonging.
Mm.
And the main premise, one of the main premises is these three things that we want to integrate and create space for. And it's all different fractals. It's like for me, for small groups and families to communities and organizations, but it's those toughs, it's the tensions and unintegrated feelings. And then
Yeah.
it's our needs. And it's like recognizing we have needs, naming our needs, getting to know our needs, getting to know how our needs are met, and opening those up to invitation and all of that, and consent-based relationships. And then the last one is our desires and dreams, and
Yeah.
saying, fuck yeah, we desire things. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I want to live a pleasurable life. Fuck yeah, I have dreams. I want to become the wildest, becoming of me possible.
Yeah.
And let's then embrace those three things. And if we as a community can center on those tensions and unintegrated feelings, and this is the griefs, the angers, the shames, the fears, the anxieties, all the things that we are not creating fully space for, and then integrating as guiding wisdom. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if we're not bringing that in, if we're not integrating all of our needs and recognizing that those must be met in relationship and cared for, and then helping us actualize and realize and fulfill our dreams and desires. If we bring those three things, we create a world of belonging for everyone, and
Yeah.
we create
Yeah.
ourselves. And so now, like for me, after all the complexity, that's me, that's my simplicity. If I don't take responsibility for everything, but if I can look at the culture and it's like this little bubble that I can just kind of poke here and there, it's like
Uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
want to bring people back to those.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, anyway, so that's a whole different tangent in another time. And I'm just we only got a couple minutes because
Yeah.
I got to leave in the next 5 or 10, and it's getting close to the hour.
All good. Yeah, yeah.
The last place that the community failed at, I would say, is a rhythm of ritual. It is creating rituals for me that go back to those three things and create space for those.
Yeah.
What does it mean to meet once a week and
Yeah.
share our toughs? And
Yeah.
we create space for the anger to be moved through, for the fear, for the
Yeah.
grief. And this goes for people in their personal life to even smaller, like my inner part, my inner child, as
Yeah.
well as like interpersonally between us. And if we're constantly saying that tensions and living this, embodying it, tensions are a place of wisdom, and tensions are something that need to be integrated. That little friction with somebody not doing the dishes leads to being shared right away and nothing's brushed under the rug. And it just constantly happens all the time, as
Yeah.
well as we're centering the needs. And so what are the needs of this landlord to be successful in this role, especially if their gifts aren't aligned there? How can I show up for you so then you can show up for us?
Yeah.
And like have that be named. How, even getting into financial needs and interdependence there, relational needs, emotional needs, support, touch and love and care, and all of the different things. I'm fucking terrified and afraid. I'm writing a book. Like this is like so overwhelming. Like who am I? Am I even worthy of this? But
Yeah.
there's just
Yeah.
going from me, and I got to keep writing it. And instead of just doing this alone, I can look at my housemates. So I'll call my chosen family and say, hey, I'm aspiring to this dream. I just want to be seen in this, seen in my vulnerability through it, and I want you to help me do this. And I don't
Yeah.
know what help means like, but it's just enough that you're seeing me right now, and I'll let
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know more. And so,
Word.
like, again, all of that, and then this is our desires and dreams, and helping us, bring as much pleasure and fulfillment into our lives. And so, rituals that
Yeah.
allow us to constantly be growing together, constantly
Yeah.
sharing gratitude, celebrating together, and moving through those tough feelings to the grieving together. And so, if there would have been, yeah, if we would have had more ritual and a rhythm of it that could have held the container for integrating all that needs to be integrated, I
Yeah.
think the community would have survived, or moved through. But again, it's happened how
Yeah.
it's happened how it's meant to, and now we go through a winter and we get to see what spring brings.
Yeah. 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 No, I dig a lot of that. I think that, I talked about sort of, pinning certain people down. And I think that a lot of this work, partially on my end too, right? Is that I think that people who are like spiritually inclined and da 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 da, there's an aversion to structure. There's an aversion to a calendar. There's an aversion to sort of those like top down sort of executive function things because you just want to be free and you just want to feel good and da 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 da. But recognizing that there is to honor ritual, ritual is based in structure
Yeah.
and time and and those things are sacred.
Yes.
If we don't maintain those things, then we lose ourselves, right? If we don't have, whether it's a personal mourning ritual, whether it's a collect, like I run the student affairs committee here.
Yeah.
And last year I was a member and we had bi-weekly meetings, but it was all bullshit and they were often canceled. This year we've been doing weekly meetings and we've gotten a lot of shit done
Yes.
for the community, right? And part of me is like, another meeting or whatever, but like, and everybody is sort of taking on different roles. And I've been able to say, like, who has the bandwidth to take this on? And they get the shit done, you
Yeah.
know?
Sure.
And I recognize that, like, I'm not the best at always getting certain things done, but I am good at leading. I'm good at delegating. I'm good at inspiring.
Yep.
And things are getting done because of it, right? And I think that it's really hard, but it's these sorts of connections. I'm excited to keep talking. I'm excited about these sort of three versions. I'd like to talk more, not only for this, but I think we have similar goals. I've thought about books and writing, and I think that having partners that you can get on the wave with
Oh
is
yeah.
super helpful. And so if there's any way that I can help with that, through sussing stuff out, through reading things, through future collaboration, let me know because I think that we could do some good work.
Absolutely. Completely on the same page. I feel like right now, like yeah, I feel energized and warm, not just having the opportunity to just like have my soapbox for a few moments, which is a whole nother part of me, but to just feel such resonance with you and
Yeah,
to
yeah,
feel inspired and feel like, fuck yeah, we're in this and we're not
yeah,
alone in this,
yeah,
as it is, yeah, it's not just talking, we got to fucking do it.
yeah,
And it's also integrating, seeing the big picture and the small, like the small things and large. And so finding someone else who's flowing between that just feels really awesome.
yeah,
And similarly, let's keep connecting, exploring, talking whenever, and down for, yeah, if, let's feel into this. I don't know what I want to commit to, but if we do talk every month or two, I'd love to.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean, we can do a ritual of our own, but that fits into our lives, right?
exactly, exactly, and helps us continue leveling up and growing.
Yeah,
And like I'm learning from what you're learning, and this is that, like, we don't need to scale at all, but we want learning passing, and
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
and that's just powerful. And also, no matter where our community ends up, because we'll have a house, you got to come to Seattle for at least a week, and you can just stay with us.
Oh, for sure. No,
We,
I wanna. I need. That's a piece of this for sure.
It's a funny thing that happens through community challenges. Oftentimes it leads to a small group getting deeper together.
Uh,
And right now there are 5 of us in this house. And I will say the culture that we have right now is fucking unbelievable. I've
yeah.
never been part of something like
Mm,
this. Like
mm.
we are showing up in really powerful ways. I think, Alba, Jacob, and then I don't know if you know Mahina or Spencer. But
Spencer Tribune.
yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't know Mahina.
Yeah, yeah, and then Becca Sunny as well, and it's just like we're really like at a really powerful place,
Mm,
uh,
mm, mm.
and so yeah, so it's anyway, let's keep connecting. I'd
Sure.
love to share things as they come out. I think in a month or two I'll have like a first draft of this done. It's just it's flowing beautifully, and then I'm super excited to share it with you. Actually, this is beautiful,
Yeah, no,
and
no, I'm inspired too.
um, and then please share anything you got working on, and like
Yeah, for sure.
let's find time to connect again soon.
Yeah, no, no. I'm really excited about. I'm definitely going to get out there. I think I'm actually going to extend my time here so I can do another summer of research. So I'm
Cool.
hoping to get funding and get out that way out west all summer. And
Oh, if you did
so,
that, oh my God. I can't wait to introduce you to Aloysius as well.
yeah, yeah, I
Like,
want to meet him. Yeah.
oh my God. Like, it's a whole different, like, this is someone that, yeah, they're actually my strongest collaborator. If you look at the first newsletter, watch the video that we put together for
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll check
um,
it out for sure. I'm gonna
anyway,
subscribe. I'm gonna subscribe.
good, good. You'll see us, our updates every couple of weeks, but,
Ooh.
sending love, brother. Let's talk soon.
Yeah, lots of love. I appreciate you. This was sweet.
Thank you.
Tell everybody I say what's good.
I will. Oh, I'm going to give love to everybody for
Yeah,
you.
let
This
them
is
know.
everybody.
All right. I'll talk to you later.